What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your daily news report for Wednesday, April 20th. So let's get into what's going on today, because we are getting more and more reports that the American people have no savings. It's causing a lot of issues, it's causing a lot of harm. They cannot afford what they need to afford. We also got some news on some universal basic income payments, why some are still pushing for these, what they're trying to do, what they're expecting to do, and we'll also want to address why stimulus checks are now currently believed to not cause inflation. So I will address that. We're going to talk about how Bank of America actually is saying that inflation will continue for the rest of the year, and I also want to talk about how some progressives are pushing President Biden to declare an emergency to try to pass additional COVID funding. So let's get into all that news for today. All I ask is if you could and you do enjoy these daily uploads, go ahead and hit that like button. But let's get right into it. Because a survey was done recently to get an idea of where the American people stand in regards to paying for an emergency. Now, I bring this up because I've been talking about this for the last couple of years, that the problem is when we see an emergency arise, whatever it is, the transmission on your car goes out, right? You have an unexpected medical bill, right? Just different things. Well, according to a recent survey, 30% of people have no emergency savings whatsoever, and they could not afford an unexpected expense. Now, this isn't because they don't work, and I know that's going to be the number one question is, well, do people work? If they work, they should be able to save money. Well, yes and no. You work, you make money, but just because you work and make money doesn't mean what you make will cover all your expenses, plus have money set aside for savings. This isn't because they don't work. This, according to the reports, is due to the fact that many are still trying to get back on their feet from the pandemic. But here's the interesting statistic, is that out of the people surveyed, they say that roughly 36% of their stimulus money is still saved up. They're not trying to spend it. They do not want to spend it. Some are worried if they spend it, the federal government will come back and ask them for the money back, which essentially that's what's happening, because and maybe it's not the federal government, but it's the whole economy, is we get these stimulus checks and they were supposed to help. They would have helped a lot more if the cost of food hasn't gone up so much. The cost of gasoline hasn't gone up so much. Cost of rent, a mortgage, utilities didn't go up so much, because now your buying power is greatly reduced. Now, this is the harsh reality of stimulus checks, because without stimulus checks over the past couple of years, many people would not have been able to really afford their homes. They wouldn't have been able to pay for their cars. They wouldn't have been able to put gas in them. They wouldn't have been able to afford food. But again, these issues are still ongoing. They haven't stopped. That's the problem. That's one of the harsh realities. Is the American people need additional relief. Maybe it's going to come from their wages, right? See, they get a wage increase. It could happen, and it has happened to many people. The problem is it's somewhat stopped. The wage increases have slowed. Now, many say that we can't blame stimulus checks for the issues that we're currently facing. Some are going as far as saying that stimulus checks did not cause inflation, but many reports are also indicating that stimulus did help push inflation up. Now, I want to touch on what the former presidential candidate Andrew Yang had to say, because he says that COVID stimulus payments are not to blame for record inflation. He said that only about 17% of the payments went to the American people, but what happened with the other 83% of the COVID funding? What happened there? But again, he's also one of those ones that's pushing for universal basic income payments to all Americans ages 18 to 64. So, yeah, he kind of has his own agenda, but at the same time, he's not the only one. He's not the only one that's pushing for universal basic income, because many lawmakers say that, yes, we need additional support. They want to see universal basic income, but they want to see it come through the states, not the federal government. And again, I understand why. If it comes through the federal government, everybody gets it. If it comes from specific states, only the people from those specific states would get it, Now, it would be much easier to handle, much easier to manage, but at the same time, certain states that are not needing it, and I know you're probably thinking, well, doesn't everybody need additional income? Yeah, that'd be great, but at the same time, it also comes with the cost. So, you kind of win some, you lose some here. But what I thought was very interesting about his argument is that stimulus checks did not cause additional inflation. Yes and no. It did in some ways. Now, what I want to keep you in mind, just keep you aware of, is that more cities are planning to pass some type of program for universal basic income. It will not be the entire, the entire population in the city. It's not going to be that. It's going to be the lower income households. It's going to be people in specific cities. And again, I will address that later on because there's a lot of discussions going on right now. But as we see more of these universal basic income programs, especially in these Democratic states, what we are going to see is eventually people are going to push to see the entire state get it. Okay? It would be a monthly recurring check. Again, it would probably help you out in the beginning, but eventually, according to reports, it would most likely cause additional inflation, whether it's from rents and mortgages or possibly even food and retail products. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, what I thought was very interesting about a recent survey, about this recent survey and what Andrew Yang had to say, is that Americans need more help. That's become apparently clear. But when we get help, what's it going to look like? When's it going to happen? And right now, nobody has any good answers. And according to Democrats, they say, we must do something now. Not acting in the best interest of our voters will likely cause democracy to fail and Republicans to take control of Congress after the elections. So, Democrats understand what's at stake here. The problem is, not every single Democrat is up for re-election. For example, Senator Joe Manchin. And if, again, it's troubling that it comes to this, but if Democrats don't pass something, and it would have to be a pretty big bill, if they don't pass something, Republicans will most likely take control. So, we'll see what happens there. Now, the interesting thing is that the majority of voters right now are saying inflation is what they're most concerned about. Not President Biden's Build Back Better Act. Some say they could care less if this bill gets passed right now or not. It's going to do them absolutely no good. Others say climate spending and going green is not their priority. They do not care about what's going to happen in 20 years if they cannot survive through 2022. Some say the new tax revenue proposals sound great, but why would they care if we get new revenue in the next 10 years if they cannot make it through 2022? Again, it's just talking about how can we get through the short-term issues and obstacles to make it to 2035, 2050, when things will ultimately change. So, right now, it's all about inflation. It's all about inflation at this point, but many Democrats are still fighting for what they promised more than a year ago. And that's a real concern, as some are just stuck on what they promised a year ago. And others say we cannot build off of what we were discussing a year ago because times have changed. People have changed. Okay? So, again, we'll see what happens there. But let's address inflation for a second, because according to the Bank of America, they say that inflation will stay elevated for the remainder of the year, and they actually have adjusted their reserves to prepare for it. Bank of America also says that they see strength as the U.S. consumers are spending less on credit, but they have higher bank account deposits. The only problem is that they don't see prices normalizing in the short term. Yes, that would be a problem. Now, this is causing a lot of issues. And it's causing a lot of issues with outside spending because Americans are starting to save more money. Which, if you save more money, that usually means you are spending less money, which ultimately hurts the economy. And they're doing certain things like buying generic products, eating in instead of eating out, doing less, activities or spending less on entertainment. They're even canceling recurring bills. For instance, Just yesterday, Netflix reported that they lost 200,000 paid subscribers in the first quarter of 2022. Netflix also believes that more than 100 million households worldwide, about 30 million households in the US and Canada, are actually sharing their account passwords in order to bypass getting multiple accounts and saving money. And they say, according to Netflix, they will crack down on this activity and everybody will pay. They're also discussing putting ads in between videos like Hulu does. So here's what you can expect if you are a Netflix user. You will either pay more, you're going to see ads, or you might have to just cancel your subscription. But I'm also curious, how many of you are using Netflix at this time? And I addressed this last year as well. I talked about this a few months ago also, that for myself and my family, we pay for Disney Plus, HBO Max, we pay for Netflix, we also pay for Hulu Live and sports. So we pay for all those things. Now, I use Hulu Live, okay, to pretty much watch sports. That's it. My wife uses Netflix, and my kids use, we don't really even use HBO Max. My kids use Disney Plus a little bit. That's really it. So we're all using different ones. The problem is you can get a lot of the same stuff on just HBO Max or Netflix. So again, if you want to save money, canceling your subscriptions is one way to do it. It's a small amount of money, but at the same time, over the course of a year, it could really add up if you have multiple subscription services. Now, here's something else that's going on. We know that progressive lawmakers are calling on President Biden to declare an emergency to get more COVID funding. They say that Congress won't be able to come up with an agreement in time, and that President Biden needs to do his part. And several House Democrats say that President Biden could use military funds to fight the pandemic. This is something that we saw with former President Donald Trump, where he used military funds to try to fund the border wall. Now, according to reports, President Biden can use those funds, then he can ask Congress to replenish those funds later on when they ultimately decide that, okay, it's time to work together. So what these several House Democrats are saying is that use the money and then, or pretty much, do it now and ask for forgiveness later. It's pretty much what they're saying. Now, a lot of times this doesn't work. It doesn't work out effectively. But again, some are saying that this is their only choice. If we want to continue to provide free tests, vaccinations, this is the way that we have to do it. So we'll see if that actually works out. And in Russia news, I know I haven't been giving you a lot of Russia and Ukraine news lately. I promise I will do a little bit better because I know it's still a big, big deal. Nothing has changed except for the fact that Russia's almost sending more troops into the Donbas region. Well, reports are actually indicating that a number of Kremlin insiders are questioning Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine. And they believe that it is going to set Russia back decades. They say that they're actually mainly concerned about the economic impact of the invasion, but there's also a political agenda as well that concerns them. And many believe that this entire invasion was a complete mistake. However, they say it's too late to pull out, and so Russian troops must continue. That's what they're saying. So again, I wish I had better news for Ukraine, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like better news is coming. It's not on the horizon, at least as of not yet. So that's what we know as today. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to stay subscribed so that you never miss an update, okay, first off, you got to click that subscribe button. Also click that notification bell, because I know a lot of people, they click the subscribe button, but that notification bell, they don't get the notification when the video actually goes live. So again, maybe consider clicking that, but that's all for today. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.